Hello and welcome back to another Collective Clicks podcast. This is your host Brandon Bateman, and I'm joined yet again by Garrett Cragen today. How you
Hello.
doing, Garrett?
Doing great. Never better.
Yeah, happy to hear that. We were just talking before the show about holiday decorating trends. Are you a before Thanksgiving or an after Thanksgiving person?
I think I've changed my tune since getting married and having kids. I used to love decorating before Thanksgiving, but kids, dude, they destroy decorations. Like they've already broken probably five or six of our decorations in the last week. So I definitely changed my tune from being pro to very much anti. How about you?
I've
Do you have a
always I've
side?
always been after Thanksgiving, but this year we're doing it before.
How well before like right now or like maybe like in a week or two?
Like this week,
You've
because
already
we're
done
gonna
it.
go travel to see family for Thanksgiving and stuff. And by the
Okay.
time you like stay a little while after and stuff, you get home and there's just not enough time for Christmas
Yeah.
decorations. But I get the point. You for anybody who doesn't know, you have twin boys. They're
Twins.
like two and a half ish.
Yeah, they're almost three.
Oh my goodness.
They torture us. That's why I spend all day working on paid ads. It's just easier than facing the reality of home.
Yeah, fair enough. What do you
Just
think about
kidding.
office decorations? People have been asking me if we're gonna decorate the office for Christmas.
I hope not. But maybe we should. I don't know.
I feel like there's going to be someone who's really bummed if we don't, but also I don't want to buy new decorations for an office and store them for the rest of the year and all that stuff.
Yeah. I don't
Anyways,
know. Hot take.
to be determined. If anybody has any feedback on our decorations, let us know. Today, little spoiler, we're going to be talking about how you can work with Google, not against Google, and Facebook too. Really, they're both kind of similar.
Yeah.
But before we get into that, we have a nugget that kind of follows along with that same trend. Google has a new feature called Customer Match that it's out of beta now, right?
Yeah, so so they've had this feature of being able to upload lists into your account, but it hasn't always been used passively by Google in how it targets individuals. So going back a little bit, so there's a feature in Google Ads called Customer Match where you can upload an email list based on any kind of like factor, be it all leads, cold leads, current customers, lost customers, whatever you want. And in the past, those were only able to be used actively, meaning to like target that lead directly or that list directly. But as of last week, they just changed how those lists are used, and they're used as a way to guide Google and its algorithm to find people that look like that list. So what we've been doing is we've been uploading hot leads and that email list into our accounts to guide Google to help it find people without having to have a ton of like actual in platform like um, volume, but still being able to like help it be guided in the right direction, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And this isn't just speculation. I think they officially said that smart bidding algorithms do take into account. Um, I don't know what words they use. Basically, like similar audience
Uh huh.
type data. Although, is it a coincidence that this happened at the same time that similar audiences are being deprecated?
I don't think so. But one thing to just be aware of is that this only works if you are using smart bidding. That's basically everything but manual CPC bidding. So it's just one more reason why we advocate heavily that people use auto bidding types because they give you access to a lot more data points than just your own
Yeah.
like knowledge or data could ever match.
Hmm. So to make sure that everybody can understand here, we're talking some about bid strategies. How would you describe what a bid strategy is?
So a bid strategy is the model that Google uses to dictate how and on whom it bids. Historically, the only option that you had was just a manual bidding tactic where you bid on the keyword level or on the audience level, and those keywords that do well, you bid higher. The ones that do poorly, you bid lower, and that was kind of like the extent of it. But over time, Google has rolled out new automated bidding strategies that um, you bid less on the individual keyword, and instead you give Google a target cost per lead or a target ROI, and it finds the searches, the audiences, the individuals that it believes are going to help you hit that target. And we've seen it be much more effective than trying to outsmart Google with a more manual, granular way of bidding.
Hmm. What would you say about the automated bidding stigma? That honestly, I think the PPC world had for a little bit around it and then moved past, but it seems like the real estate investment world's still kind of there.
Yeah.
With like this stigma around automated bidding that it's automated, therefore I could probably do better.
Yeah, I think people have a hard time giving up control to Google because there's a belief that at times is accurate that Google wants you to spend more money and it doesn't care as much about the results, which isn't true in general. They want you to get good results. That way you can keep spending money. It does at times have the incentive of taking away some of the visibility into your metrics, like your bids. But in general, there's a way to align your goals with Google's goals, and that's become a lot easier recently with auto bidding, because those systems have become much more like advanced and effective over time, as Google's kind of like fine tuned its own product. But historically, it wasn't great, but it's gotten a lot better the last couple of years.
Yeah, it's billions of dollars worth of advertising revenue to improve the algorithms probably helped
It does definitely
Google
help.
figure
Yeah,
things out a little
definitely.
bit. Yeah, I think this kind of goes along with the overall theme of like, to what extent can you trust Google? Does Google have your best interest in mind? Does Facebook have your best interest in mind? Do you want to do what they want you to do, or do you want to do what you want to do? And to what extent do you want to clash with them? What would you say most people are doing, and where are they going wrong?
I think people kind of take it in two extremes, where they either think, it's me against Google. They are gonna just like recommend what makes them more money. I'm gonna go manual bidding, only exact match keywords, just go very granular, take all the control. Or people say, well, I trust Google. Like, this is their platform. Like, I'll go all in on what they're advising because, like, they know best. And there's a lot of agencies that sit in both of those extremes. We take a more moderate approach to things where there are things that we've seen work that Google recommends that we lean into heavily because it works. There are other parts of Google's like best practices that we feel aren't quite wholly baked yet. Like they're very half-baked ideas that we're waiting on rolling out until we've seen it work a lot better. So we don't see it as like us versus them. It's more like, how can we best leverage what Google does well and like maximize that for our clients, but not giving all of our trust to Google when we know that it doesn't have pure motives, purely pure. It's not totally honest at times.
Yeah, I get it. I think it's important to make the distinction of like who is Google, who is Facebook. In this case, I know we're mentioning Google a lot. It's because they're a little bit more famous for this type of thing. Facebook's equally famous, maybe less so moving forward with all the people they laid off and having even less support somehow than they had before.
Shockingly.
I didn't know they could pull that off, but I guess they are. But I think there's also, like, when we're talking about Google, there's a couple things. I think one thing is the technology. Mm-hmm. Well, that's what Google is. They're a technology company.
Yeah.
And their technology is pretty dang good. The other thing is the people. And everybody who has a Google Ads account generally has something called a Google rep. And Google reps are generally, by the end of this podcast episode, you might know more about Google Ads than a Google rep does. That's how wrong they are about a lot of things. You want to expand on that?
Yeah, so I think it's important to understand how they are incentivized as reps. They are strongly encouraged to drive widespread adoption of the latest best practices of Google. And they also are incentivized to drive up spend. They are not compensated by retention. From what I've heard from reps that I've worked with, it's mostly just on adoption of new features and spend. And they, unless you are like a Fortune 500 company with like millions of spend a month, you're probably not going to get a rep that knows more than you. And they definitely aren't going to be incentivized to help you drive better performance.
Mm-hmm. So for our clients that are listening to this is the person who calls you and tells you that you have poor performance in your ads and you got to fix something, or they email you that there's this certain problem in your account. I could tell you they're a thorn in my side because they're telling our clients, like, your company's not doing these things right. Please do these things. Because like you said, they're incentivized based on adoption. I think the problem that Google faces is they roll out changes and then nobody actually uses them. And Google reps are kind of the solution to get people to use them. Because certain things, like, for example, had nobody ever used automated bidding strategies, they wouldn't actually work that well now because there wouldn't have been enough data for them to learn and to actually become good. So that's part of Google's plan is, sometimes their newer stuff, like you said, their half-baked stuff. The only way to bake that fully is you've got to actually put it out in the wild.
Give it data. Feed it.
Yeah. So anyways, when we say trust Google, we don't mean the person who works with Google that calls you. We mean their technology. And I think this is a little bit of a mindset shift, just in terms of, on one hand, like you said, assuming that they just know everything and have our best interest in mind and completely understand every niche and stuff. That's not exactly true. But also to assume that their interests and ours are inherently flawed or misaligned, I think is not true either. Because really, if I had to say what Google probably cares about most, it's maximizing the revenue that comes from Google. That's how they're going to maximize their own revenue, right? So they're really interested in advertisers performing well. They're not interested in finding ways for you to spend less money for the same thing.
Right.
But they are interested in getting more total revenue from the platforms in general, which a lot of those things really well align with what we're trying to accomplish too. We want to get the most possible revenue generated from the campaigns at scale.
Right.
So do you think there's anything different with Facebook other than they just do what Google does somehow worse, but the same thing?
I don't think it's all that different. I would say that they seem less responsive to public feedback than Google. And so they take a lot longer to fix things that don't work well in their platform. So I would...
/ never fix those things.
I would take their rep and their support advice with an even larger grain of salt than Google. Because their ad revenue is even more heavily skewed towards big players than Google is, and so they're even less interested in helping the smaller players than Google is.
Yeah, understood. So I think one reason we want to collaborate with Google or with Facebook is data. They have a lot of it, and we don't have all of that. What do you think? I mean, I think most people, if you ask them, "Are you data driven? Do you believe in data?" I think like pretty much everybody will say yes.
Right.
But there's different people define data differently. How do you think that differs when we're talking about data for digital marketing compared to data for most marketing channels that people work with in this industry?
Yeah, I think in paid, um, um, acting on data is a little bit different than getting good data in like direct mail, for instance. In ads and in digital marketing, good data means it tells the story that we think it's that we want it to tell, and it does it at scale where the algorithms are able to actually act on that data. So what we want to do in digital is give Google as much data as possible that represents the kind of audience that we truly do want to target.
Yeah, I think I completely agree with you. To expand on it just a little bit, the core of the distinction here is if we're talking about like direct mail or cold calling or texting or whatever the case is, a lot of times what data is that in that circumstance is like my skip trace list. It could be like the list itself. It could be how I'm stacking those lists, how I'm targeting to find the right people, because you have your outcome, which is what you want, and you have that outcome measured in the past. And then you have this data that could be somewhat predictive of that outcome. Like if someone is going through probate, they are more likely to potentially be a motivated seller than someone who's not going through probate or foreclosure or bankruptcy or meth contamination or whatever it is. There's a ton of motivation points. Versus if we look at the digital marketing landscape, it works a little bit differently. The way that it works is all of that data that's predictive, we don't actually have that much control over it, nor do we access most of it. The number of data points that Google has per user is like
billions.
Well, I mean billions overall, but per user, it's still something ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's like tens of thousands.
Yeah.
But yeah, they have
They have a lot of data.
a lot of data points overall, and then they have like 20 or 30,000 or some number that's just irrelevantly large for the total number of data points per user. And those are kind of like the lists that people usually use. And then we have our outcome. And the way this works, just crash course machine learning and how that stuff works, is you have your outcome. And in this case, this is like what's called the supervised model, where there's a specific outcome and we want that number to be a particular thing. In this case, just as high as it possibly can be for the number of deals that we get from our marketing. And then there's those other points that people would often call data that in this world are called features. And what happens is the way you win with direct mail or something is you basically do a lot of features. You find more features, you stack them, and you basically find the way to target better. The way that you win in digital marketing, those features are already there. You can't get them out of Google. You can't get them out of Facebook. The way that you win instead is by clearly communicating outcomes. And then you use the technology that Google or Facebook has, where they look at all of the features that they have and they predict what is likely to drive the best outcome. And it's actually surprisingly effective.
Yeah, and I think the key is that is that both of those ad platforms need a lot of data points from you to best leverage those features, like its own information on those users. So in order for Google to effectively optimize for, let's say, a lead qualified, they recommend having 15 of those leads in a 30-day period. What we've found is that it actually works better if there's 30 of those leads in a 30-day period. And so if we give it the right outcome examples, then it's able to replicate those outcomes with its own back-end data. But it all comes down to like having accurate tracking and giving Google enough of those data points to allow it to duplicate it and replicate what those leads have done.
Mm-hmm. So there's actually two things. Assuming we are saying that the best way to get results is to track the right outcomes and report that information to Google or Facebook, there's two ways to actually get better results then. The first thing is by feeding it more data. The second thing is feeding it better quality data. And what you're talking about is more data. Like if you can have 15 data points per month, that's something. If you can have 30, that's even better. If you can have 500, that's even better. Mm-hmm. And it goes on and on. That's something super interesting about this customer match thing that we were talking about before that's just getting rolled out, is you can actually even use past information about customers from before you had your Google Ads account to feed things. It's not just based on the tracking. If I'm not mistaken, I think it's a $50,000 minimum for customer match, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So in order to be eligible for that feature, your account or the account where that list is housed has to have a lifetime spend of $50,000.
Okay, understood. Lifetime spend. And the way that we get around that is we kind of house our accounts together under a manager account, mm-hmm. Which is sort of interesting because they act as their own individual accounts. Permissions can happen with those accounts individually, and our clients actually own their accounts. Mm-hmm. Should they choose to part ways with us at some point, they have their data and stuff like that. But we use some of the features from the grouped accounts, mm-hmm. like being able to do customer match. And then the other thing is shared bid strategies. That's the other thing that we do to give it more data. Because and I'll explain what that means, because it's probably a little bit foreign to people listening. But if you look at like the history with Google Ads, or even the landscape as it is now, because of these things, like you can't do customer match unless you have 50 grand spent, or the more, if someone's reporting 100 leads a month rather than 10, they're going to be able to get better targeting and better improvement. And it's all stuff that kind of favors the bigger advertiser, which is where a lot of revenue for Google Ads comes from, is those bigger advertisers. So it's kind of fair to say. But I guess the concern that people have is, I'm too small, so am I going to get squashed because I can't actually do the volume. That other guy who spends $100,000 a month, how am I ever going to compete with that with my $5,000 budget? You want to talk about how shared bid strategies kind of get around that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So how those function is, because all of our clients share the same bidding strategy, they all get the benefit of the aggregated data volume of the agency as a whole, but they only have to spend their budget. So they get the benefit of being the equivalent of probably the largest player in the REI space, but they do it on a budget that is in general quite a bit smaller than what their data volume would indicate. So we're able to teach the algorithm a lot faster what works and what doesn't work. And clients that we onboard have a much briefer learning phase when they launch, because they start with all of the data history of all of our clients, as opposed to just what their one account would have on its own.
Yeah, it's crazy powerful.
Yeah.
If anybody wants to fact check us, talk to anybody spending hundreds of thousands a month in Google Ads that like knows what they're doing. Not like the owner of the company, like an actual ad manager that knows things. Yeah. They'll say like most of the best advertisers, that's their secret, is it's about giving the right quality data and volume of data to Google. And yeah, if you can kind of team up with other people to make that happen, on a higher level, then it just accelerates that really significantly. Although I'm going to play devil's advocate for a second. I'm curious to see how you answer the curveball. If you look at like how we market ourselves versus a lot of our competitors, there's a lot of people that are talking about how, like, by the way, this strategy we're talking about, none of our competitors do it. I've never seen it in another account in the real estate investment space. That doesn't mean it couldn't have happened, some weird instance where I just never saw it or something. But certainly I don't know anybody else with more ad spend under management. So even if other people were doing it, it couldn't be as powerful as what we're doing anyways. But kind of taking that and putting that aside, we have a lot of competitors that say, like, you'll get deals really quickly, and then our messaging is generally give it 6 months. You need time for the algorithm to learn and all that kind of stuff. Why do we say that if we just have these bid strategies that are already kind of pre-trained, and theoretically the ramp up is going to be significantly faster than it could be otherwise?
I think it comes down to just the inherent volatility in this space. Even though we do have a briefer learning phase than other agencies, there still is going to be within your individual account a decent amount of variance, because each click is expensive, and that means that in a given time period, there are going to be a limited number of clicks that are driven. And with our average lead or click to lead rate and lead to deal rate, in 1 month or 2 months, that variance is pretty wide, just because that's kind of how it shakes out. But over 6 months, that variance becomes a lot less impactful, and having that paired with our systems learning how your individual market works, your individual audience works, that's about how long we've seen it take to have all of those numbers shake out and that real impact of what we're doing be much more obvious.
Yeah, understood. I think part of it is also just like expectation setting. Because I mean, I think what a lot of marketers do is they take like the best they've ever seen and call it normal.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of like optimistic people do that. I'm naturally more of a pessimist, so I will take like the worst results our clients ever got and call it normal, and just because I know that we could at least do better than that. So I think there's some element of that involved as well. So we talked about the first thing being more data. What about better quality data? How do you improve the quality of the data that you send to Google?
Yep, there's a couple ways of doing that. The most common way that people are able to give Google better data is by using what's called end-to-end tracking. And basically what that entails is you can feed back into Google Ads how far into your pipeline that click went. So if a person was marked as qualified, was marked as an appointment, an opportunity, or a won contract, each of those stages in your pipeline can be an offline action in Google Ads or in Facebook Ads to teach the system like how and also to give you insight into how different clicks and different keywords, different campaigns are doing after they're first captured, and not just like, oh, this click was a lead, therefore that's a good click. But in reality, by giving Google that offline data, it helps us better know like the true value of that click, and not just like did it or did it not give us their address and their email in a form.
Yeah, understood. So end-to-end tracking, that's number one. That's really interesting. I think where most companies are here, the only tracking they do, which honestly, I just audited an account that spends $100,000 a month that didn't even do this, and I was mind blown. But for the most part, like if we're just talking about, because there's like with everything, there's kind of like the wrong way to do it, and then there's the right way to do it, and then there's like the really, really good way to do it.
Yeah.
Like the optimal, kind of beyond best practice. The worst way to do it is you just don't track conversions. The right way to do it is you track leads. And like I said, that company spending $100,000 a month didn't even do that, believe it or not. But that's an exception, and again, mind blown. But the next step after that is tracking more than just leads, like deeper into the funnel. Mm-hmm. And where I think people sometimes trip up with this is so many companies, basically what they know, like you can know in a super granular level within Facebook ads, within Google ads, what specific marketing activities generated your leads. Mm-hmm. And you can know on a super granular level which exact leads turned into deals. So we have this tracking kind of in two different places, but we don't know which of those marketing activities generated which deals, because there's that division. As soon as we get to the leads list, now it's just this pool of leads, and then we have no idea where any of them came from after that point. Yep. So it's really just making that connection of, where did those individual leads come from, yep, and getting that data back into Google. Is there anything else about like reporting better conversion quality that could be done?
Yeah. So something that we've been doing with our clients is basically what I call lead sculpting, where in the form we can ask questions that would help us know very quickly if that lead is a qualified lead or an unqualified lead, and then we can basically tell Google to not even count those leads as a lead before they even get back into the system. So if they tell us that their property is already listed, or if they're out of market, or if they're wanting market value, all of those questions can be asked in the form, and allow us to sculpt out those leads as a conversion, and not give Google the false positive that that's a good lead because it was marked as a conversion. And so by doing that before they even get into the account as a conversion, we can sculpt those out as bad leads and train it to only find people that answer in the way that we know would indicate a good lead.
Yeah, absolutely. This is so interesting to me. I was just recently on office hours with Robert Wensley. He does, like, with Investor Lift, they do a live thing with their clients every week or so. There's a lot of people in there that do PPC just because the national strategy is pretty interesting there. And my give was just to audit anybody's PPC who wanted me to look into it. And I found some pretty interesting things because I talked to a lot of companies. They're basically saying, I'm getting destroyed by these listed leads. We're getting tons of listed leads with the shift in the market. And I've been trying all these different things to get away from them, and I can't seem to get away from them. And then I look in their account and I say, well, why do I see all these listed leads counted as conversions? Because what I explained to them is basically every time you get a listed lead, you're giving a high five to Google and saying, good job, get me more of those, please. Uh-huh. And then you're surprised that you're getting a lot of listed leads when it's really just it's about that communication loop and what information are you sharing with Google to help Google optimize. It's not that Google's against you. It's that you never told Google not to do that. Yeah. And you get upset that they do that.
Yeah, it's all about giving good feedback, like with any partnership, right? Like if you don't tell your partner that they're doing something you don't like, then they'll keep doing it. And that's the case also in ads, where if you give the ad platform the validation that it's doing a good thing that actually isn't aligned with business outcomes, then it'll keep doing it, right? And so the more we can teach it what we want it to do, it's going to do it, right? Put in good data, get out good results. And so by using this lead sculpting tool that we've been working on, it's helped us to cut down that rate of on-market leads by quite a bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really interesting. So to describe two precise ways on how we're using this right now. Number one is if someone inputs their phone number and address, we take them to the next step of the form, and then we ask them, is your property listed on the market or not? If they say yes, then we just don't report it as a conversion. We'll still send the lead to our clients because sometimes they'll make good creative finance deals out of those listed leads or something like that. But we all know the reality of it is that they're just significantly less valuable than something that's not listed on the market. So what we do is we still collect the lead, but we don't tell Google it was a lead. For Google's intents and purposes, we just tell it that nothing happened. And then also we do this based on IP address now. You want to talk about how that works?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so what we have been doing is we have our form pull the IP address of the user, and if they are an out of market lead, they still go through the same process as a lead that's in market, but they aren't marked as a conversion in the ad platform. They're still sent to the client. They're still pushed into their systems. They just aren't passed back to the ad platform as a conversion because they're not as valuable as a lead that's in market. And so that allows us to weed out spam or overseas leads or leads that just aren't in an area that client can service.
Yeah, fully understood. All right, well, that's awesome. Anything else about lead quality or the quality of the data that we feed to Google?
I think that's it.
Yeah, there's tons of cool stuff in the works when it comes to lead scoring, because a lot of it's not binary. It's not like this was a good lead or this was a bad lead. It's how good of a lead was this?
Yeah.
And we're moving more towards that model, which is kind of interesting. Last question here. How deep in the funnel should you optimize? Because I think someone could listen to this discussion and just decide like, okay, I've actually seen someone do this and it was a disaster. Decide that the only conversions they're going to track are deals, and because they're going to tell Google when there's a deal and they're just going to optimize for deals. And it sounds like it should work, right? Like, why wouldn't that work?
It comes down to the sample size of the data that is available to Google. If you only have, like, let's say 2 or 3 deals in a given month, then it's going to be very hard for Google to replicate that action because it doesn't have enough common factors between each of those deals to know how to find people that look like that individual. So what Google recommends as best practice is to optimize for the lowest step in your funnel that has at least 15 actions in a 30-day period. So whether that's leads qualified, appointments, ops, whatever, pick the lowest action in your funnel that has at least 15 paid sourced leads per month. I would probably actually advise doing 30 over 30 just because I've seen that work better, but Google says 15, I'd say 30. So that's one instance where Google and I disagree. But the idea is the same. We're like, find the action that has enough volume to be usable, but also is low enough in the funnel that it would indicate quality and business outcomes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the way I like to think about this in my head is kind of visualizing a funnel. You at the top you have like how many people see your ad, and then you have clicks, and then you have leads, and then you have like net leads and opportunities and appointments and contracts and deals. And basically, the deeper you go into this funnel, the more you care about it. Because who actually cares about how many people see their ad? No, we care about deals, but people seeing your ad is on the path to that. In clicks, we care about a little bit more than impressions, and leads we care about a little bit more than clicks. But as we get deeper and deeper, while the business outcomes improve, the amount of volume goes down. And like we said, the way to win is more data and better quality data. Sometimes those are against each other because sometimes increasing the quality of your data decreases the volume. And that's an interesting heuristic of just go deeper or as deep as you can without getting below 30 actions per month. Mm-hmm. I think that's an interesting way of going about it. I was just thinking theoretically, if some company could aggregate a lot of that data and then go deeper into the funnel, but do it through a lot of aggregation. So you can get down pretty deep but still have at least 30 deals per month, then there'd just be no way to do better than that. That's why our process is what it is. Yep. With these shared bid strategies and with aggregating our clients' data across the board, because theoretically, if you work with other similar companies and you pool your data together, you're going to have both better volume of data and better quality of data than you could potentially have under any other circumstance.
Yeah, in this space, I think the biggest obstacle to finding a scalable engine of growth is data sparsity. And so what we try to do with our clients is to overcome that data sparsity with data aggregation. And so it's very hard for one investor to have 30 deals per month from Google Ads and to be able to optimize for that low of a funnel action. But for our clients, because all that's shared, it's possible to actually optimize for that low funnel action without having to bring that in through just your own efforts. And so that's the challenge of doing this solo, is you're working against data sparsity, but by working with Bateman as an example, is we're able to overcome that largest obstacle to scaling, which is data sparsity.
Yeah, understood. Any last words before we close things up?
Last word is please do not decorate for Christmas before, let's say, the 8th of this month, or it just makes me sad.
All right. Well, it's the 15th of this month.
Yeah. So
here
at this point, you're good.
Okay. At this point, we're good.
At this point, you're good. But next year, just wait, please, until the 8th.
Okay. Fair enough. I'll do that. Well, thanks for joining us for this episode today. And we'll see you next time.
Thanks, guys.